Rome is one of those places where history feels almost impossibly dense. It is not just a city with an old past, it is a city that shaped empires, religions, laws, architecture, language, and political ideas across continents. People often reduce Rome to a few famous images: gladiators in the Colosseum, emperors in marble, armies marching under red banners, or ruins glowing under the Italian sun. But the real history of Rome is much bigger than any single monument or era. It is a story of constant reinvention, from mythic beginnings to republic, from empire to religious capital, and from decline to survival. According to Roman tradition, the city was founded in 753 BC by Romulus, the legendary figure who gave Rome its name. Whether that exact story is true matters less than what it tells us about Roman identity. From the start, Romans imagined their city as something born out of struggle, ambition, and violence. Early Rome grew on a group of hills near the river Tiber, in a position that was useful for trade, defense, and contact with neighboring peoples. It was not destined to rule the world. At first, it was just one community among many in central Italy, influenced by older cultures like the Etruscans and the Greeks. That early period matters because Rome did not appear fully formed. It learned, borrowed, adapted, and fought its way upward. The Romans absorbed religious practices, engineering ideas, military techniques, and political habits from others, then reshaped them into something distinctively Roman. In its early monarchy, the city was ruled by kings, but that system did not last. Around 509 BC, according to Roman tradition, the monarchy was overthrown and replaced by the Roman Republic. That moment became central to Roman political memory. Romans came to hate the idea of kingship, at least in theory, and celebrated a system that claimed to defend liberty, citizenship, and shared government. But the Roman Republic was never democratic in the modern sense. Power rested heavily with aristocratic families, wealthy landowners, and ambitious politicians. The Senate became the center of elite influence, while magistrates competed for office, prestige, and military command. Ordinary citizens had rights and political importance, especially as soldiers, but Rome remained deeply unequal. Even so, the Republic gave Rome something crucial: a flexible political structure capable of expansion. Roman citizens, allies, generals, and administrators worked within a system that could wage war, absorb territory, and keep functioning through crises. And expansion came quickly. Rome fought rival cities in Italy, then major powers beyond it. The Punic Wars against Carthage were especially decisive. In those brutal conflicts, Rome nearly collapsed, then recovered, then emerged as the dominant power in the Western Mediterranean. Victories in Greece, North Africa, Spain, and the Eastern Mediterranean followed. What began as a local city-state became a vast imperial power, even before it officially had emperors. This success transformed Rome, but it also destabilized it. Wealth poured in. Enslaved people arrived in huge numbers. Generals gained personal armies and political influence. Social tensions deepened. That is one of the most important truths about Rome. Success created new dangers. The city grew stronger abroad while becoming more fragile at home. Political competition became more violent. Reformers like the Gracchi tried to address inequality and were killed. Generals like Marius and Sulla marched on Rome itself. The Republic still existed on paper, but the old balance was breaking down. By the 1st century BC, Rome had become the center of a system too rich, too large, and too unstable to be managed by traditional republican habits alone. The stage was set for one of the most dramatic transformations in world history. That transformation came through civil war, personal ambition, and the collapse of republican restraint. Few figures represent this better than Julius Caesar. A brilliant general and political operator, Caesar used military success in Gaul to build fame, wealth, and loyalty among his troops. When he crossed the Rubicon in 49 BC, defying the Senate and igniting civil war, he made clear that Rome's political crisis could no longer be contained by custom alone. Caesar defeated his rivals and became dictator, but his rise terrified many Romans who believed he was destroying the Republic. In 44 BC, he was assassinated by senators who claimed they were saving Roman liberty. Instead, they accelerated the end of the old order. More civil wars followed. Out of that chaos emerged Octavian, Caesar's adopted heir, later known as Augustus. He was careful, calculating, and politically brilliant. Rather than openly calling himself king, Augustus presented himself as the restorer of stability. In reality, he built a new system, the Roman Empire. Republican offices still existed, but real power now flowed through one man. Augustus understood something essential about Rome. After generations of turmoil, many Romans would accept reduced political freedom in exchange for peace, order, and prosperity. Under Augustus and his successors, Rome reached extraordinary heights. The city itself became a showcase of imperial wealth, crowded with temples, forums, baths, aqueducts, theaters, and public monuments. Roman engineers built roads that connected distant provinces, while Roman law, administration, and taxation created a framework that held together lands stretching from Britain to the Near East. Latin spread. Trade flourished. Armies guarded frontiers thousands of miles from the capital. The empire was not peaceful or humane by modern standards, but it was astonishingly effective. Rome became the beating heart of an interconnected world. Yet the empire was always more complicated than the marble image suggests. Emperors could be capable or catastrophic. Some, like Trajan and Hadrian, expanded or stabilized Roman power with impressive skill. Others became symbols of excess, cruelty, or paranoia. Succession was often uncertain, and the empire depended heavily on the character and competence of whoever ruled. Meanwhile, the city of Rome itself was crowded, unequal, noisy, and vulnerable to fire, disease, and unrest. Monumental grandeur stood beside poverty and danger. The imperial capital impressed the world, but it was never a flawless machine. Another turning point came with the rise of Christianity. At first, Christians were a minority, sometimes tolerated and sometimes persecuted. But in the 4th century AD, Emperor Constantine backed Christianity, and Rome's religious future changed forever. Even as political power gradually shifted elsewhere, especially toward Constantinople, Rome gained new importance as a spiritual center. The old pagan city of temples and triumphs was slowly becoming the seat of the papacy. That change did not happen overnight, but it permanently altered Rome's identity. Meanwhile, the Western Empire was weakening. Economic strain, political instability, military pressure, and repeated invasions eroded Rome's dominance. In 410 AD, the Visigoths sacked Rome, shocking the ancient world. In 455, the Vandals did the same. And in 476, the Western Roman Empire traditionally came to an end when the last Western emperor was deposed. But Rome did not vanish. That is what makes its story so remarkable. The imperial city declined, yes, but it also adapted. Even stripped of its old political supremacy, Rome remained symbolically enormous. Its ruins still spoke of unmatched power, and its bishops were becoming figures of growing authority in Christian Europe. What happened after the fall of the Western Empire is one reason Rome still feels unique. Many cities lose power and fade into regional importance. Rome lost an empire and somehow remained central to history. In the medieval world, it survived as a city of pilgrimage, memory, and religious authority. The Pope became one of the most influential figures in Europe, and Rome became the heart of the Catholic Church. Ancient ruins were reused, reinterpreted, and built around. The city was poorer and smaller than in imperial times, but it was still loaded with meaning. People no longer came to Rome because it ruled the Mediterranean with legions. They came because it held the tombs of saints, the authority of the Church, and the living memory of the ancient world. During the Renaissance, Rome was transformed again. Popes became major patrons of art and architecture, determined to make the city reflect both spiritual grandeur and political prestige. This was the Rome of Michelangelo, Raphael, and Bramante. St. Peter's Basilica rose over the city as one of the most ambitious building projects in history. Ancient Rome was studied, admired, and imitated, while Christian Rome projected new confidence. Once again, the city became a stage on which power, symbolism, and visual spectacle came together. Rome also played a role in the modern history of Italy. For centuries, it remained part of the papal states, ruled by the Pope not only as a religious leader, but as a temporal ruler. Only in the 19th century, during the unification of Italy, did Rome become the capital of a modern nation-state. In 1870, Italian forces entered the city, and Rome was eventually established as the capital of unified Italy. Even then, its identity remained layered. It was simultaneously ancient capital, papal city, artistic treasure, and modern political center. What makes the history of Rome so powerful is that it never belongs to just one period. The city has had many lives. It was a settlement on hills, a republican powerhouse, an imperial capital, a Christian center, a Renaissance showpiece, and a modern capital. Each layer remains visible. Walk through Rome and you are never in just one century. A church may stand on a Roman foundation. A Renaissance palace may face an ancient column. A modern road may cut across the path of emperors. Few places make the continuity of history feel so physical. Rome also raises timeless questions. How does a city gain power? How does it hold it? What destroys political systems from within? How do myths shape identity? And why do some places remain powerful in memory even after their original power has gone? Rome matters because it gives us dramatic answers to all of those questions. It shows how ambition, discipline, violence, adaptation, and image can build something enormous. It also shows how even the greatest systems are vulnerable to internal conflict, inequality, overreach, and change. In the end, the history of Rome is not just the story of one city. It is the story of how human beings create institutions, myths, monuments, and identities that can outlast the people who built them. Rome rose through conflict, mastered vast territories, reinvented itself through religion and culture, and survived the collapse of the world it once dominated. That is why it still captures the imagination. Rome is not remembered only because it was powerful. It is remembered because it kept changing without ever becoming irrelevant. Beneath the ruins, domes, roads, and stones, Rome still feels alive. And that is exactly why its history continues to matter.